Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine getting a beautiful wedding invitation in the mail. You are so excited for your family member, but then you look closely at the envelope. Your partner of 4 years is not invited. The bride says, "No ring, no bring." What would you do? Would you go alone to keep the peace, or would you stay home to support your partner? Today, we're diving into a tough real-life drama about family, boundaries, and wedding etiquette. As we follow Nora's story, you will learn advanced English vocabulary and useful idioms for handling arguments, making tough choices, and setting boundaries in relationships. Let's start with Chapter 1, The Golden Envelope.
The mailbox was usually filled with boring things. Nora usually only found utility bills, supermarket flyers, and junk mail. But today was different. Resting on top of the usual stack was a thick, cream-colored envelope. It felt heavy and expensive in her hand. On the back, it was sealed with a beautiful stamp of shiny gold wax. Nora smiled instantly because she knew exactly what it was. It was the official invitation to her cousin Chloe's wedding. Chloe was marrying a wealthy businessman, and the entire family had been talking about this high-profile event for months. Nora walked into the kitchen, carefully broke the gold seal, and pulled out the gorgeous card. The elegant cursive letters invited her to a luxury beachfront resort in September. It promised an exclusive evening of fine dining, dancing, and celebration. Nora felt a rush of excitement and immediately thought about what outfit she and her partner Simon would wear. But as she looked closer at the inner envelope, her smile faded. The card was carefully addressed to Nora Vance alone. There was no mention of Simon anywhere. There was no "and guest," and there was no +1 option checked on the RSVP card. Nora stood by the counter completely caught off guard. She and Simon had been living together for 4 years. They shared an apartment, a dog, and a life. Simon had attended countless family dinners, birthdays, and holiday gatherings. He was not just a temporary boyfriend, he was her life partner. Nora felt a sudden sharp sting of disappointment. She wished she could shrug it off, but she could not. To leave Simon off the guest list felt like a deliberate slight. She stared at the beautiful gold lettering, but the excitement was completely gone. Instead, a heavy feeling of dread started to grow in her stomach. How was she supposed to explain this to Simon? And more importantly, how could her own cousin treat their relationship like it didn't matter? Nora could not sleep that night. The image of the single name on the envelope kept running through her mind. She decided it must be a mistake, a simple oversight during the busy wedding planning. The next morning, Nora took a deep breath and called her cousin Chloe. When Chloe answered, her voice was loud and she sounded very stressed. Nora tried to keep her tone light and casual to avoid any immediate tension. She congratulated Chloe on the beautiful invitations and then gently brought up the issue. She mentioned that Simon's name was missing from the card. There was a long, heavy pause on the line. Chloe did not gasp or apologize for making a mistake. Instead, she let out a short, impatient sigh. Chloe explained that it was not a mistake at all, but a strict and deliberate decision. She said the wedding venue had very strict capacity limits and the catering costs were sky high. Because of this, she and her fiancé had to draw the line somewhere. Chloe then stated her golden wedding rule: no ring, no bring. She explained that only married or engaged couples were getting a +1. Nora was shocked by how cold and dismissive her cousin sounded. She reminded Chloe that she and Simon had been together for 4 years, which was longer than some married couples they knew. But Chloe brushed the argument aside immediately. She said she barely knew Simon, and she only wanted people she actually knew well at her intimate celebration. Nora felt her anger rising, and she knew she had to put her foot down. She told Chloe that treating a 4-year relationship like a casual, temporary fling was deeply unfair. But Chloe remained stubborn and refused to budge. She said it was her special day and everyone needed to respect her wishes without causing drama. When the call ended, Nora sat in silence feeling completely stung. Chloe's harsh words were a hard pill to swallow. Nora was left stewing in frustration, wondering how a celebration of love could feel so unbelievably selfish. That evening, the aroma of freshly baked lasagna filled the kitchen. Simon had spent over an hour cooking, wanting to surprise Nora after her long workday. He poured 2 glasses of water and smiled warmly as she sat down at the table. Nora looked at him, feeling a heavy wave of guilt. Simon was always so kind, thoughtful, and supportive. She did not want to ruin this peaceful dinner, but she knew she could not keep the secret any longer. Taking a deep breath, Nora broke the news about Chloe's wedding invitation. She carefully explained Chloe's strict no ring, no bring policy. Simon paused with his fork mid-air, his expression blanking for a brief second. Then he quickly recovered and tried to play it cool. He let out a forced, soft laugh and told Nora she should go anyway. He said it was family, and he didn't want to be the reason she missed her cousin's big day. He tried to shrug it off, acting as if he preferred staying home with the dog anyway. But Nora knew him too well. She could see the subtle hurt in his eyes and hear the quiet strain in his voice. There was a clear undercurrent of disappointment in the room. Simon always tried to downplay his own feelings to protect Nora, but being treated like a total stranger by her family, especially after 4 whole years, was deeply insulting. Nora reached across the table and squeezed his hand firmly. She told him that they were a team, and his presence mattered. Simon admitted that it did hurt to be so easily excluded by people he considered family. The delicious dinner suddenly felt tasteless. They sat together, trying to navigate the painful reality of the situation. Nora realized that if she attended the wedding alone, she would be validating Chloe's disrespectful rule. The conflict was no longer just between her and her cousin. It was now testing the boundaries and loyalty inside her own home.
The next afternoon, Nora's phone buzzed repeatedly on her desk. It was a call from her mother, Helen. Nora knew exactly why her mother was calling, and she dreaded answering. As soon as she pressed accept, Helen's anxious voice filled the room. Helen begged Nora not to make a scene and implored her to just attend the wedding solo. She argued that every family has rules, and it was not worth creating a huge scandal over one night. Before Nora could even explain her feelings, her phone started vibrating with non-stop text notifications. The extended family group chat had completely exploded. Chloe had obviously complained to the entire family, and now everyone was sharing their opinion. The messages were filled with passive-aggressive comments. One aunt wrote a long paragraph about the extreme budget constraints of modern weddings. Another cousin posted an article about proper wedding etiquette, hinting that unmarried partners should not expect an invitation. Everyone seemed to be talking about family loyalty, but no one was showing any loyalty to Nora or Simon. Helen continued on the phone, trying to act as a mediator, but she was really just applying more pressure. She said that attending alone was simply something Nora had to do for the sake of family harmony. She even tried to guilt-trip Nora, saying that Grandma would be heartbroken if Nora's seat was empty. Nora felt completely overwhelmed and suffocated by the intense pressure. It felt like the entire family was joining forces to protect Chloe's feelings while completely ignoring Simon's existence. They wanted Nora to keep the peace by swallowing her pride and accepting the slight. Nora realized that the family echo chamber did not care about fairness or respect. They only cared about appearances, and they expected her to fall in line without asking any questions.
By Friday evening, the relentless buzzing of Nora's phone had finally stopped. But the quiet did not bring her any peace of mind. As she was finishing her dinner, a new text message flashed on her screen. It was from Chloe. The message was short, formal, and completely devoid of any warmth. Chloe stated that the caterers needed a final head count by the weekend, and she needed Nora's official RSVP immediately. She added a final sentence. "If you cannot make it alone, we will miss you, but we must move forward with the final seating chart." Nora stared at the words, feeling the weight of a clear ultimatum. Chloe was not leaving any room for discussion or compromise. It was a simple, harsh choice. Come alone on my terms, or do not come at all. Nora sat on the couch, realizing that this stressful situation was no longer just about a single wedding party. It was a defining moment for her future. She faced a major crossroads in her life. If she gave in to the family pressure and attended alone, then she would be telling Simon that their 4-year commitment was negotiable. She would be admitting that her family's outdated rules were more important than her partner's dignity. On the other hand, if she refused to go, she would face the fury of her entire extended family for months to come. Simon walked into the living room and saw the deep frown on her face. He didn't ask to see the phone. He already knew what was happening. He simply sat next to her and put a supportive arm around her shoulders. His quiet presence reminded Nora of what true, unconditional loyalty actually felt like. Nora knew she could not let this deadline pass without taking action. She needed to stand her ground and protect the life she had built with Simon. She took a deep breath, opened the wedding website, and prepared to make her final move. Nora's fingers hovered over the keyboard of her laptop. The bright screen of the wedding website illuminated the dark living room. She stared at the digital form and the 2 checkboxes that would decide her fate with the family. With a steady hand and a clear mind, she clicked the box that said, "Declines with regrets." She knew that simply clicking a box was not enough. She owed her cousin a direct message. Nora opened her email to write a formal but firm note to Chloe. She carefully avoided using angry words or pointing fingers because she did not want to give anyone an excuse to call her immature. She wrote, "Dear Chloe, thank you for the beautiful invitation to your wedding. Regretfully, I am unable to attend. Because Simon and I operate as a committed team, I have chosen not to attend major celebrations where our 4-year partnership is not recognized. I sincerely wish you and your fiancé the absolute best on your special day, and I hope it is everything you have dreamed of." Nora read the message one last time to ensure it sounded polite and dignified. It was the perfect example of a polite refusal. It was respectful to Chloe, but it completely honored her own relationship with Simon. She pressed the send button, and the email disappeared into the digital world. Simon looked over at her and offered a warm, reassuring smile. Nora let out a huge sigh of relief, feeling a massive weight lift off her shoulders. She had officially chosen to spend that future weekend prioritizing her true partner instead of pleasing an unreasonable crowd. However, as she closed her laptop, she knew this was only the calm before the storm. The polite refusal had been sent, but the family's reaction was going to be anything but polite.
The reaction was almost instantaneous. Less than an hour after Nora sent the email, her phone began to vibrate violently on the kitchen counter. Chloe was absolutely furious, and she did not hide it. She sent a barrage of angry text messages, accusing Nora of being selfish, dramatic, and petty. Chloe claimed that Nora was trying to make the entire wedding all about her and her boyfriend. The peace Nora had felt just moments before evaporated into thin air. Soon, the rest of the family joined the attack, and the social fallout grew much worse. Nora's mother called in tears, saying Nora had deeply embarrassed the immediate family. Aunts and uncles began taking sides, and most of them fully supported Chloe. They viewed Nora's polite refusal as a declaration of war against family tradition. Nora realized that the family was completely blowing things out of proportion. She had simply declined an invitation quietly, but they were treating her like the ultimate family villain. The constant flow of negative notifications was beginning to affect her mental health. Simon gently took the phone from her hand and suggested a break. Nora knew she had to protect her peace, so she decided to set firm digital boundaries. She muted the family group chat, blocked a few unreasonable relatives, and put her phone on Do Not Disturb mode. It was a difficult thing to do, but she refused to sit and listen to constant insults. Looking at the quiet screen, Nora felt a strange mix of sadness and strength. She was losing the approval of her extended family, but she was gaining something much more valuable: her self-respect. The highly anticipated wedding weekend finally arrived. Far away on the coast, the extended family was gathering in their expensive suits and dresses. But Nora was nowhere near the stress and drama of the luxury beachfront resort. Instead, she and Simon were miles away, unpacking their bags at a cozy, secluded cabin in the mountains. They had planned a romantic, low-key getaway of their own to celebrate their relationship on their own terms. The morning air was crisp, cool, and completely serene. There were no anxious wedding coordinators, no seating charts, and no tense conversations with uncles she barely knew. Instead of sitting alone at a singles table across town, feeling awkward and unwelcome, Nora spent her afternoon hiking through the woods with Simon and their dog. They laughed as the dog chased fallen leaves along the quiet trail. Changing her plans felt like the perfect detour. She realized that being excluded from the wedding had a major silver lining. It had forced her and Simon to slow down, step away from the noise, and reconnect. That evening, Simon built a warm, crackling fireplace in the fireplace. They cooked a delicious meal together and poured some nice wine, deciding to truly treat themselves to a relaxing night. Nora looked across the warm room at Simon, feeling a deep, overflowing sense of gratitude. This weekend was not a lonely consolation prize. It was a beautiful, joyful affirmation of their love and commitment. By choosing to protect their peace, they had turned a painful family slight into an unforgettable celebration of their own.
On Sunday evening, Nora and Simon returned home from their peaceful mountain cabin. As soon as she unpacked her bags, Nora sat on the couch and finally turned off her phone's Do Not Disturb mode. Instantly, photos and videos of Chloe's wedding began to flood social media. Her entire timeline was filled with shiny images of the luxury resort, the expensive floral arrangements, and the smiling guests. Looking at the glamorous pictures, Nora felt a brief, unexpected pang of FOMO, the fear of missing out. She saw her entire extended family posing together for a big group photo, and for a split second, she felt sad about her absence. She wondered if her relatives were talking about her, and if she had made the wrong choice by being so stubborn. Simon noticed her staring intently at the screen and sat quietly beside her. Instead of getting defensive, Nora decided to be honest and talked through her complicated feelings with him. As she vocalized her thoughts, her perspective completely shifted. She looked past the perfect filters and the fake smiles on the social media feed. She remembered the stress, the insults, and the selfish demands that had happened behind the scenes. In hindsight, she realized that the beautiful wedding photos were just about validation and saving face. True respect and love did not exist in that glamorous ballroom. It existed right here in her own living room. Nora closed the social media apps, feeling a deep sense of closure and relief. She did not need the approval of a toxic family echo chamber to feel happy. Making that difficult choice had given her a profound feeling of empowerment. She looked at Simon and smiled, knowing with absolute certainty that she had protected the one thing that truly mattered.
Three months had passed since the drama of the wedding. The summer heat had faded, and the leaves were beginning to turn vibrant shades of orange and red. Nora's uncle was hosting a casual end-of-season family barbecue in his backyard. Nora and Simon arrived together, holding hands firmly as they walked through the wooden gate. This was the very first time Nora and Chloe would interact since the heated email exchange. Nora felt a brief moment of nervousness, but she quickly calmed her mind. As the afternoon progressed, the intense tension from the summer had clearly cooled. When Chloe walked past the patio, she and Nora made eye contact and exchanged a polite, brief nod. Later, they stood near the food table, and Chloe finally spoke, asking a casual question about Nora's job. There was no big apology, and there was no dramatic crying scene. They did not explicitly clear the air, but both women understood that the fury was now water under the bridge. However, things were not exactly the same as before. Nora felt a clear, healthy emotional distance between herself and certain members of her extended family. She no longer felt the need to pleasantly agree with everyone just to keep the peace. By standing her ground, she had established permanent and strong boundaries. Moving forward, her family knew that respecting her relationship with Simon was not optional. As they drove home that evening, Simon reached over and held her hand. Nora looked out the window with a peaceful, contented smile. The wedding invitation had originally felt like a painful curse, but it had actually been a disguised gift. It had tested their partnership and made their bond stronger than ever before. She had lost the superficial approval of the family echo chamber, but she had secured a deep, unconditional, and true connection. What a powerful lesson about self-respect and boundaries. Nora faced a very tough situation, but she chose to protect her relationship instead of pleasing an unreasonable crowd. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Nora's shoes? Would you have attended the wedding alone to keep the peace, or would you have stayed home like she did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and learned some new English vocabulary today, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check the description box for a full list of today's advanced idioms and expressions. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.